Tonight, the Strait, the bases, and the bargaining table all catch fire at once. Iran hits 3 Gulf capitals, the U.S. strikes for a second straight night, and oil jumps. If you're just joining us, the Hormuz crisis started with Iran moving to control tanker traffic through service fees and attacks around the Strait, then widened into direct U.S.-Iran exchanges. By our last edition, Washington had struck Iranian coastal sites. Tehran was claiming attacks on U.S.-used Gulf bases, and mediators were scrambling to keep the June 17th U.S.-Iran memorandum from collapsing.
This is Iran War Daily. Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan in the blast radius. Sanctions and strikes in the same breath, and Tehran saying no more talks. We'll get into who's actually paying for all of it.
This one's from CNN.
U.S. allies Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan all reported responding to aerial threats on Monday morning local time after Iran said it was launching strikes across the region in response to U.S. attacks on its territory.
Here's the latest on the Hormuz to Red Sea escalation. A second night of U.S. and Iranian strikes has now pulled Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan into air defense mode. Per CNN, the U.S. military says it hit dozens of Iranian military targets, and Iranian state media says its forces are responding with a fresh wave toward U.S. bases. And I want to get the geography exact. Sirens in Bahrain, Kuwait reporting hostile aerial targets, and Jordan's military says it intercepted 4 Iranian missiles. That's 3 U.S. allied capitals, none of them signatories to the MOU.
Jordan intercepting 4 missiles it says came from Tehran. A capital that didn't sign anything is catching the blast radius of a deal it had no hand in. Who's paying the air defense bill in Manama and Kuwait City tonight? And CNN's got Brent up over 3% on Sunday. That's the street telling you exactly what a second night of strikes is worth. The interim deal brought prices down for a minute, and this just handed it back.
Here's the timing that sharpens it, Rich. CNN notes we're near the halfway mark of that 60-day negotiating window. So the strikes are landing in the most sensitive stretch of the diplomacy. Not before it, not after. Al Jazeera writes,
Oil prices jumped more than 4% after the latest flare-up between the United States and Iran that threatened their already fragile truce. Both main oil contracts, which have tumbled since the announcement of an interim agreement, spiked as much as 4.5%, fanning concerns that inflation, already elevated because of the war, could force central banks to hike interest rates.
Oil up as much as 4.5% on the day, same contracts that had been tumbling ever since somebody announced an interim agreement. So the market just marked that agreement to 0 overnight.
Put 2 numbers next to each other. Per Al Jazeera, the interim announcement pulled crude down measurably. This second night of strikes put as much as 4.5% back on. You can see the market price the deal in, then price in the risk of it breaking.
And Tehran is hitting Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, 3 U.S. allied capitals outside the deal, but inside the blast radius. Who's picking up the air defense bill in Manama tonight?
Jordan is the one that jumps out to me. Bahrain and Kuwait were on the confirmed list already. Oman being drawn in tells you something about which coalition Tehran is now willing to antagonize. Here's Parisa Hafezi and Steve Holland at Al Monitor.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and his Omani counterpart on Saturday discussed arrangements for the safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, as Washington seeks a public pledge of free, secure transit.
Reuters has Araghchi in Oman on Saturday, talking safe passage through Hormuz with his Omani counterpart, Badr al-Busaidi. And Washington's ask is specific: a public pledge of free, secure transit through the strait. The sequencing matters. Trump declared the ceasefire over on Friday, yet the same Iranian source tells Reuters that Iran, the U.S., Qatar, and Pakistan agreed to negotiate. So the diplomatic channel and the strike track are both live at once.
Free, secure transit, sure. And later in the show, you'll hear Tehran's price for that pledge. because they didn't come to Oman to hand it over for nothing. Here's what caught my eye. Reuters says no attacks were reported Friday or Saturday. 2 nights of strikes, then quiet, then talks in Muscat. Call it a pause while somebody prices the strait.
And note who's mediating. Qatar and Pakistan on the call, Oman hosting the room. The Gulf states doing the shuttle work are in the same neighborhood absorbing the blast this week. This one's from the Economic Times.
The United States has imposed new sanctions on Iran's financial networks. These sanctions target a key financier for Mujtaba Khamenei and other individuals. This action follows recent attacks on commercial oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. The United States aims to disrupt Iran's access to foreign currency and international finance.
So while missiles are flying over the strait for a second night, Treasury dropped sanctions on 14 names, a financier for Mojtaba Khamenei and 13 others per Reuters. Timing's cute.
Let me be exact on who's targeted. The lead designation hits a money man tied to Mojtaba Khamenei, the designated successor to the late supreme leader, per the Economic Times. So this reaches into Iran's succession fight, not just its oil revenue.
Right, and it lands the same week Washington is at the table asking Iran for free access through Hormuz, the piece we just hit. You're squeezing the man's inner circle with one hand and asking him to open the strait with the other.
Same government, same news cycle. Treasury pressure, plus a diplomatic ask. Neither Treasury nor the negotiators have explained how those fit together out loud, and the sanctions cite the tanker attacks as the trigger.
And here's what nobody at the podium prices. Cut a financier off from foreign currency, fine, but who's actually paying? Iran's crude buyers in Beijing, that's who, and that barrel just got more expensive to move.
Here's Arsalan Shahla and Jeff Mason at Business Standard.
The comments came hours after the U.S. demanded that Iran publicly declare all channels of the Strait of Hormuz open to shipping and pledge not to attack civilian vessels transiting the waterway.
So Tehran's answer is on the record now. No talks until Hormuz access and oil exports are on the table, per Business Standard. They put a price tag on getting back in the room.
And let's name the source precisely. This is Iran stating conditions, not a mediator characterizing them. Arakchi was gesturing at this last week without a deadline. Now it's Hormuz and exports, spelled out.
Which lands the same day Washington's demanding free strait access in the Al-Monitor piece we just hit and rolling out fresh sanctions. Those two levers are yanking in opposite directions. You can't sanction a man's oil and ask him to keep the tap open for you.
Same government, same news cycle, and nobody's reconciling it. Treasury is squeezing while negotiators are asking, and Tehran just told you which message it's answering.
And Beijing's holding the discounted barrel that fresh sanctions just made pricier. Whatever this refusal costs, Iran's biggest customer is helping foot it.
If Iran War Daily helps you stay oriented, take a moment to subscribe or leave a review wherever you're listening. It really helps other people find the show, and it helps us keep bringing you clear updates every day. What we're watching next. Omani and Iranian negotiators are expected to keep going with technical and political level talks on safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. You'll find links to every story we covered today in the show notes, if you want to go deeper on any of them. That's Iran War Daily for today. This is a Lantern podcast.